my privilege to be with Rabbi Dr. Marc Gopin, who is the director of the Center for World Religions, Diplomacy, and Conflict Resolution, the James Lau Professor at the School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution at George Mason University. And Rabbi Gopin has pioneered projects in countries around the world, such as Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, and Israel, is doing fascinating work, transformative, life-saving work. And our topic for this 10-minute session is healing conflicts, in particular on the interpersonal work and family level. Can you share a little bit about some of the methods that you think about?
Yeah, well, a number of years ago, I realized I've been doing counseling for people in conflict resolution for much of my life. And what I came to understand is that there are some basic principles and disciplines that with those disciplines you would get to a much higher level of understanding the conflicts that you're in and progressing with them. And the most important one, basically they came to about 8 of them. And the most important one that is in all the great wisdom traditions in history is what I call B, but it's basically self-examination. That so much of conflict you think is out there, that it's actually happening inside of you. So many of the things and the mistakes you make in relationships is actually because we don't take the time every day to look into ourselves, examine our relationships, examine what's happening, and why did I end up in conflict with this person and not at that? What did it bring up for me? And what does it mean for me as a person, who I am, who I want to be? Why did it get so upsetting in this particular case? And why with this person was the conflict easily solved? What does that have to do with my person, myself? Then the next step is to really recognize and acknowledge deep feelings that we have, both negative feelings and positive feelings. And that self-examination of the feelings that are involved in conflict, what did it really make me feel like when I had this conflict? Why is it so much better now that I've ended this conflict? What are the values implicit when I feel one thing versus another? So examination of self and identity, examination of feelings, all lead to a step in which you're more ready to meet the other, and meet the other who could sometimes be difficult. And the next step in meeting the other is listening, is a really deep process of listening and watching for every single thing that somebody says, words that repeat themselves, ways in which you start to understand, who is this person? Why are they the way they are? And the second one is, of course, very related to C, is observation. It's like watching every single interaction. These are all the clues that start to give you an understanding of a social situation. Once you have that, so you know yourself well, you know thyself, you know the other well, then you start learning about, and it's a step called understand, the dynamics of conflict resolution in general. That conflict analysis and resolution around the world, they follow certain patterns. There are patterns involved in spiraling, escalation. Science, the science of conflict resolution, the fact that when we're very angry, when somebody presses the wrong button, it's our lower brain, our amygdala, that starts to dominate. When we think about it and we say, I'm really sad, or I'm really hurt by what you just said, we are activating a higher brain. We're using words to say, I feel this, and our neocortex is starting to act. And so these kind of understandings lead to greater self-control and a greater strategy of focusing on what my real needs are and what, as opposed to just reacting. The next step that's very important is that most people in conflict in business or in family, they keep going like this, and they're angry about something from the past. But imagine is the next step, because the power of imagination is a great gift of the evolved human mind. And that notion, like if you say to me, what did he do to you? I'll go on forever. I have such an intimate knowledge of everything he did bad. And then you ask me, what do you want to do about it? Like, where do you want the relationship to go? I say, I don't know. And it's okay, because at that moment, your brain is trying to figure out the future. So we want to help people in the next step to sit with their imaginations and imagine what would be better. What would be the steps to get to better? And then where do I want to end up? And that changes the whole dynamic of the relationship. Once you've gone through all those steps, the next stage is to think about symbolic, positive gestures that would make things better. And then the final gesture after that is speaking, is watching every single word that you say. Because most conflicts end up with somebody having great trouble with not saying things that are hurtful. But if you've gone through all the previous steps, you're much more conscious of every single word you're going to say. Your brain is in control. It's not just motor mouth. And then you start selecting your words very carefully for what you're going to move the relationship to through those words.
Mm-hmm. You talked about support in one of those later stages of beginning to imagine the future.
Yeah.
What type of support is needed in some of those earlier stages of self-awareness?
Friends, anybody who can help you self-reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a simple matter.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, counselors are good, but not everybody's going to have a counselor for every conflict. That's pretty unusual. But it would be good if more of us counseled each other and talked about what's going on with you. Why is this the person that is getting under your skin? Why is it that boss? You've had other bosses before. What's going on? What is it? So, and you let somebody talk, and then they start figuring themselves out.
Yeah. To really do this well, it feels like one almost needs a deep spiritual awareness. It's almost like we were asking us to step out of ourselves to see ourselves and see our past, and then step out and look at someone else, and then step out and look at the whole relationship, and to be so aware of one's emotions, of one's relationships, of one's speech. That's a pretty high bar to set. I mean, so I guess my question is what's some of the emotional intelligence people need to have that capability?
Well, all of this is emotional intelligence. All of this capacity to look at yourself rather than look at others, to be aware of your feelings, to be in control of your all of your senses, your listening and your observation, and then your power of speech. In the end, it's helpful if for you it is a positive act. It's a fulfillment of something. I think that from a Torah point of view or Jewish point of view, each one of these are a mitzvah. It's a bechinas and nefesh. Self-examination is a mitzvah in Judaism. It's a part of tshuva. It's a part of repentance. It's also self-care, because part of self-examination is caring for yourself. That's a mitzvah in Judaism. And then other mitzvahs are shmirat halashon, watching everything that you say and making sure what you say is a blessing, not a curse. Cursing is forbidden. Watching everything that you say, doing a mitzvah. So listening, ezahu chacham, alomid mikol adam, that everybody the wise person learns from everybody. That means you're listening all the time. Siyag l'chachma shtika, the root of wisdom is listening, is silence. So if these steps are taken and you see them as part of your spiritual life, then it reinforces it. It makes you feel, I'm not just solving a conflict in the workplace, I'm being a good Jew.
So there's a real opportunity for the Jewish community and other faith communities to develop more language and spiritual practices around these issues.
I want to hasten to add that I happen to be a partisan for private religion. In other words, the public space that we share with many people of different faiths and traditions should be a place where we can translate these values. But for me, in terms of my own life or my life inside a shul, I want to say that these are mitzvahs. I want to feel this as a mitzvah, and that will give me great strength and connection to the life and the next life and so on. Whereas in the public space, I want people to be able to share universal values.
Beautiful. I agree with that. So if we could shift Jewish education and the discourse from survival conversation to thriving conversation, the tools of musar that you mentioned, the tools of chassidut that you mentioned, sort of some of the spiritual practices, I think it could have major implications. Now, what are some of the global implications for this work? Now, you've been talking about interpersonal work and family, but is it really the same methodology on the global level also?
I can tell you, because I've worked for 30 years overseas and in the most intense conflicts, that everything boils down to interpersonal relationships and these very skills. That the way in which I've survived in dictatorships, I've worked inside dictatorships, I've worked in revolutionary situations, I work in places of great danger. And the people who thrive and strive in those places and who do well and who take care of other people, who literally save lives, they're people who are in total control of themselves. They are aware in each moment their fears, they're aware of their aspirations as a person. They figure out and they watch every single thing that they say. In a dictatorship, if you want to help people, you have to watch every single word that you say in order to keep it positive, to keep it constructive in terms of how I can help people right now and not get anybody into trouble. So these are things that have applications to many global conflicts.
So it's not that something remarkably changes at scale, if you don't have that self-awareness in a marriage or in the workplace, it's not going to translate, in global peace work either.
No, I work in the State Department all the time.
Yeah.
And the people who are doing well with helping people in the world in the State Department have these emotional intelligence skills.
Yeah.
The ones who waste millions of dollars, and I've met many of them, they are stubborn, they're not self-examined, they're determined to do their way and nobody else's way, and they waste a lot of money.
Yeah. So my last question for you, those who want to learn more about this because they want to be a part of global or even local conflict, or they want to bring it into their home or workplace, what are one or two books or websites you might recommend? And the only rule is that you have to include something of your own as well.
Well, I mean, this is the book that I wrote in 2006. It's called Healing the Heart of Conflict.
Great.
And it's exactly on this.
Look below for the link. We'll have a link to the Amazon page.
And I'm rewriting it now, and eventually it's going to be on Amazon, republished in a second edition. And then as far as these other psychosocial skills, Google psychosocial healing, Google self-examination and conflict resolution. Yeah. There's a lot of good literature on this. On emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman's work, of course, and I can think of more to put on your website.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So it's incredibly rare that someone is rooted in Jewish thought, is rooted in global affairs, and is rooted in academy and intellectual engagement as you are, and so many other realms. And so it's very inspirational for me. I encourage everyone to look out for Rabbi Dr. Marc Gopin's works also. Thank you so much. Yeah.